20 minutes, kind of go through your journey a little bit, introduce people to you a little, and then we'll work our way up to the Mandela effect.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've stated many times on my channel about my God experience in late September 2023, and that was a precursor to being introduced. It was like I was being asked if I wanted to know something or if I had a question about anything. Do you want to know something about the world reality? I asked, tell me something about reality that you want me to know, that you would like me to know. And within 3 hours of that prayer, first the God experience happened. Then about 5 days later, I was presented with that question. And then about 3 hours later, I saw an article popped up on a BuzzFeed. It just popped up on my phone accidentally. I just swiped the wrong way, and this article popped up. And this guy who I knew was dead was alive. And I'm reading the article, and my mouth is just dropping. And it's like, this is impossible. And I'm calling my son, and I'm calling everybody I know. Don't you remember this guy dying like 2 years ago? And they're like, yeah, kind of. Like their certainty wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So I'm showing that article to everybody. And 3 days later, the article changed. It was the same article basically, but the wording had changed, and now he was dead. So it was so weird. At first, he was alive in the article, but sick and needed his family to take care of him, and the family was fighting over things. And by the third day, he was back to being dead. And now the family's just fighting over what's left behind. But
when was this?
It was so strange. This was back in late 2016. September 23rd, I had the God experience, and within 5 days, I'd say, of that experience, this all happened. And that, when I was asking the question, how could this guy be alive? I know he died. That's when I came across all this other stuff about the Mandela effect. So then when I started looking at the Mandela effect, I was like, yeah, I remember that, I remember that, I remember that. And then things started to change right in front of my eyes. Like as I was looking at it, the first time it happened, I walked out of my room. My family, my wife, my daughter, they all saw me, and I looked like I seen a ghost. That's what they said. They literally said, you look like you've just seen a ghost. What happened? I was like, all the blood drained from my face. I was shaking, uncontrollably, tremors for at least a half an hour. I looked around at me. I was like, where am I? How can this be real? None of this can be real. That I saw, and it wasn't just seeing the thing changed. It's the timing of how it changed, and it was a personality, as if reality itself was being controlled by somebody else or had a personality of its own. But it was doing it intentionally for me to see it.
And what was it? What was this change?
Opened my eyes. So with that one, it was the Phil Collins song, and I was looking at the lyrics because I remembered it being "Hold On" very clearly. My whole life, it was "Hold On."
Yeah.
And the lyrics changed to "Oh Lord," but I found a thumbnail with the lyrics, a big thumbnail, and the lyrics right across the screen was saying the line and saying "Hold On." You could read it clearly. So I said, "This is going to be good. This is going to prove to everybody I'm not crazy. It is "Hold On." So I started playing the song. I'm looking at the song, and the funny thing is that song had a wolf theme. With the Lion and the Lamb and all that stuff, the wolf theme was perfect. So there's these wolves running around and all that. Right when you get to the point where he's singing the "Hold On," I'm just waiting for it, patiently waiting for him, Phil Collins, to get that point where he says "Hold On." The scene is this person holding like a baby wolf, and the wolf is just looking right at me. And right when he gets to the point where it says "Hold On," the words change to "Oh Lord." Right at that moment. And I'm looking at that, looking at me, and my jaw drops. I'm like, this can't be happening. This truly, I've been a spiritual person my whole life. I've always believed that there's more after death and that miracles can happen. I've believed in miracles. But I never fully believed reality could do that sort of thing right in front of me. It just defied everything I thought about this place. And when it changed, I was like, just my mind was blown, and my whole family and everything. And of course I went, this has got to be the end. Jesus is going to come back soon. The apocalypse is at hand. I was, full blown. This is it. But that was the start of this. That was the start of my Mandela effect stuff back in 2016, and kind of talking to God again, because I had gotten away from talking to God. I had gotten away from prayer. When I was young, bizarre things happened to me. God saved my life a few times. There was a guardian for sure. My life was saved a number of times. Once I even caught on fire and I didn't burn. There was
Wow.
things like that
Well,
that happened. I had lots.
let's hear more about that. Can we talk about that for a minute? I
Yeah,
mean,
when I was a child, I grew up in a house, had lots of interactions with ghosts. Ghost was a daily occurrence. There was,
yep.
if you watch these Cody and Zach and all that, and they get all freaked out when they see God. Like every day, I experienced ghosts. That was not a big deal. But it was Christmas time, and I was a child, and I saw the Santa Claus. We had a Santa Claus decoration. It was plastic. It stood probably 2 feet tall. There was like a 60-watt light bulb on the inside, and you plug it in and he lights up. So I saw I wasn't plugged in. I thought, plug him in. I plugged in the cord, and I didn't know there was a cut. There was a little slit in the cord right where you put it with your hand. And when I plugged him in, I guess I should have gotten electrocuted and died. But instead, and I was plugging him in with my left hand, my hand caught on fire. So instead of getting electrocuted, I caught on fire. And I used to teach basic electricity, so I know everything I'm saying is not supposed to happen. So this thing, my hand catches on fire. It starts burning at the fingertips, just the top part, nothing on the bottom. And it's about a 3-inch flame. There's no smoke. There's no smell. There's no sound. It's just burning, and it's mystical. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm staring at my hand in wonder that I'm not feeling any pain, because I know this is supposed to hurt. And I'm just watching it, thinking, this is amazing. This is cool. I was a young boy. I'm thinking, this is awesome. I'm watching it burn. It gets to my sleeve, and I was wearing like pajamas, like felt pajamas, and it got to the sleeve, and it just started burning the same way my hand was, no different. But no smoke, no smell, nothing changed. It just kept slowly going up my arm, and I'm watching it all the way to getting near to the top, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't let this thing take over my whole body, because what if it does start to hurt? what if my grandparents walk in? I was living with my grandparents. What if they walk in and see this? They're going to freak out. So I shook my arm as hard as I could, and it went out. It hurt. I still remember it hurt the joint in my shoulder because I shook my arm so hard. And I examined my hand, and it was black on the top. Black soot had covered the top of my hand, but my pajamas, the sleeve was fine. There's nothing noticeable about that at all. I went into the kitchen. I washed my hands, and I just looked at my hands thinking, this is remarkable. My hands don't hurt at all. My skin's just as new looking as it can be, and it just no harm to me. And I had the sense of the impossible way back then. The ghost, a voice spoke to me one time, and when I was a child, and said to run, and I had no idea that I was about to get abducted. But right behind me, a man was reaching for me. At that same moment, this voice urged me to run home now, and I just took off running. I didn't question it. I just strong urge to do what it told me, so I just did it. And that man chased me all the way down the block. And when I got to my house, my grandfather just happened to walk outside, and he locked eyes with the guy who was chasing me, and that guy, turned around, ran. And my grandfather, when I got up to him, he said, "Who's that man chasing you?" I said, I don't know. I don't know anybody chasing me. So I'm looking at this guy take off, and I got a glimpse of this guy, but my grandfather was scolding me that I should just run into a neighbor's house, because back then nobody locked their doors. You could just run into anybody's house back then. So he said, you just run into somebody's house if somebody's chasing you. So I'm like trying to tell my grandfather, I'm saying I had no idea. Honestly, I didn't know. It was just because that voice told me, and there's other things that happen in life that I know were things came really close to changing my world, and something intervened, and Lord knows if there's been others that I don't know about, but there's been a number of those things. And that later on in life, I became very spiritual, read the Bible, just decided upon myself I was going to read it cover to cover. I was a teenager, and I decided I wanted to be a pastor. I was preaching in my school. I was opening the Bible, reading the Bible to people. I was gung-ho to become a pastor. Mm-hmm. And then my beliefs and spiritual belief kind of changed more towards just being spiritual about things. I wasn't quite so sure about all the questions we have about how God is or who he is, but I did know that I had experiences with prayer. God had answered my prayer a number of occasions. Once when my grandfather was dying, he was in the emergency room. I said to God, the doctor came out and said, we're going to have to take him off the ventilator or take him off the machine. He might die here. And I just said to God, can you just let him come home, even if it's just for 2 more weeks? I don't want him dying here tonight. So that's exactly what happened. Came out of the hospital, everything seemed fine, seemed perfectly healthy for the next 2 weeks, interacted plenty, and then he died exactly 2 weeks later.
Wow.
So stuff like that. You know, I know there's an interaction from a protective being, which I would say is God, and interaction, and I've asked things and they happen. I know that when I asked to be shown something about reality, that was completely an answer. And ever since that first change, I've seen things change numerous times, and I've been talking about that. I decided, Affected Collective and I were talking every day at that point, trying to figure things out, like what's going on here. And she convinced me that I should start a YouTube channel. So I started mine, then she started hers shortly after. She was my very first subscriber and comment.
And this was 2016? You started your YouTube channel to talk about this?
It was December, yeah. It was December of 2016 that I started it. And I think that same video now is on Odyssey, because a lot of my videos I lost when YouTube did the Great Purge.
Yeah.
But I think it's still on Odyssey. But yeah, that was the start of me. And then I took like a whole year off where I didn't upload anything, but the channel was still active. And I was on Mandela Monday for years and did live streams, but I haven't done a live stream. And this is the first one I've done in years. So it's been a long time. And I don't usually I just get on there real quick with my phone and I just talk about something that's running around my mind at the moment, or something I just saw or something I just noticed. That's about it.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I need more people like you to come on here and talk with us.
Yeah.
It's great, man. So you saw that Phil Collins change, and then you saw what would have been your first experience with Residue, with that meme. Is that what? And then with that, on top of that,
and that video eventually disappeared. I went back to look at it a second time shortly after, and it was gone. It just disappeared. I mean, it's really strange how this stuff happens. Sometimes you're in one reality, and I don't know if it's physically going to another one or this one's getting edited, but everything that was there at one time disappears.
Well, look at what happened with Apollo 13 and the flip-flop. I mean, that was wild.
The flip-flops, yeah. And for me, I experienced those extremely hard. So that was, I was right there with everybody when we were talking about Apollo. We were talking about Apollo 13 when it was saying, Houston, we've had a problem. And we were saying, isn't it supposed to be have? He's supposed to say have. And then it just switches. So we're like, whoa, it switched.
Yeah. And there's this.
Tidy Cats was before that one. It was all, we were always saying, it's supposed to be Tidy Cats, not Tidy Cat, but it was Tidy Cat. We were all looking at Tidy Cat. And it just switched to Tidy Cats, just like that. It was, all these flip-flops were happening. Flintstones, I think Flintstones might have been even preceded the Tidy Cats, but that T came and went. I was having arguments in one version of reality. I was having arguments with people that it's supposed to be Flint, like Flint Rock. That's why it's Flintstones.
Yeah.
And I was saying to somebody, there's supposed to be a T there, but it's gone now. And the person on the other side is saying, maybe people are smart enough to figure it out. They don't need the T. They're not that dumb. That was the response. Another guy said that there was somebody part of the show that his last name was Flynn, so he wanted to keep it Flynn and not put the T on there. I had these conversations with people that are now gone. They don't exist anymore, but I had them. I know I had them. Stuff like that just blows my mind. Hanna-Barbera had been in that reality. It was Hanna-Barbera. Not Hanna-Barbera. The name was just Hanna-Barbera. The name changed. Very, very interesting. I mean, I don't know. I've seen names change 2 or 3 times. And it seems like, I don't know, maybe the shorter the names get and the dumber reality gets, the more evil it was. I mean, it was just a sensation that I had, that it was a darker place when everything was shortened down to nothing. That Shia LaBeouf.
Who's that?
His name changed 3 times on me.
Who's Shia LaBeouf?
You know that kid that was in the Transformers?
Okay, I didn't really see the Transformers movie, but
Yeah, yeah.
so
He
what do
was
you think? What do you think
he was
about
that.
people's names changing? Do you think it's possible that like maybe these people like died and then they got like maybe or their soul got swapped out or anything on a deeper level of like why people's names might change from the Mandela effect? Like why do you think that is?
So, and that of course is a. I've got to get a drink of water because I'm drying myself out here. But the question of whether or not this reality is getting edits or whether or not we're bouncing into different versions where that exists has been a conversation for quite a while. It could be. I've wondered if there was some sort of event and a lot of people, a lot of souls just died in that version of reality and we popped into this place. That's something I've considered. I remember back in 2007 before CERN was opened up and everybody we knew it was opening and there were scientists saying this could open up a black hole that'll swallow the world and there were people trying to sabotage it and planting bombs and I was thinking, this is when I was just really not. I mean, I was pretty much into the world at that time, just trying to climb the corporate ladder. But I thought, yeah, maybe it's not a good idea for them to play with it. Just the same way people are talking about AI now. They're talking about opening up CERN like that. That could be dangerous. We could wipe out the planet. And then I don't know. A lot of stuff happened back in 2007 and 2008, but. There's theories that maybe there was a huge war and nukes and a lot of people died, so everybody got transferred into another reality. But then the idea that this is one reality that gets
It has
edited
doesn't
is
it? I mean,
plausible.
yeah, I mean, I could see like maybe some of those other things could have happened, but for me, when we see flip flops and incremental changes, it kind of shows me that we're in one fluid reality, right? And then plus
Feels like
also
it.
another
Yeah,
thing I wanted to ask you. I mean, maybe you disagree, but I mean, I feel that everybody's Mandela affected. The fact of whether they deny it or not, or they're aware of it,
yeah,
that's a different story. But I think everybody's
right.
from here and everybody's experienced what's taken place.
Yeah, I did a video one time about where I tried to define the what the Mandela affected means. Like there's the hardcore Mandela affected, and then there's your everyday person. Because the hardcore are the kind of people that realize it's happening and they can't just let it out. They can't just shrug their shoulders and go on with their life. Things have changed at that moment for them forever, and that's your hardcore Mandela affected. And then how people can hear this stuff and just shrug their shoulders and say it's no big deal. I don't understand. But just like everybody else, back when I was first affected, I gave everybody around me. It must have been a few hundred people I gave the survey to, and I ran down the list of all the things that we all remember, and they remembered with me exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then you go show them that they're wrong, and they shrug their shoulders and say, I must have been wrong. It's like, no, you weren't wrong. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. But it like everybody, and here's the thing now. Now we've had a number of years where reality's been presented the new stuff to people. So
Yeah.
they're they might be picking up on the new way and start answering more correctly.
Of course.
They might even say they have dual memories because they're getting it. They're seeing the stuff as it is now.
Yeah. But I still find though, I think that way too, and I bring that up a lot. Of course, there are eventually people are going to grow up with it always being the wolf and not the lion, right? So they're going to be wolf, wolf,
Yeah,
wolf. But I still haven't met any of these magic mirror people or Haas avocado people.
right.
They still
Little
haven't
Tykes
taken the
is a
update.
great one.
Yeah.
Everyone I say, how do you spell Little Tykes? And they have kids and they grew up with like kids. They all spell it Tykes. They're completely blown away when they see it's not spelled that way.
Yeah, it looks ridiculous now without the Y, and that's a pattern too. Why the Y's to the I's, the Y's to the IEs. We see a lot of these patterns. So why are we seeing these patterns? And do you think? Well, I mean, we should probably. You do believe that whatever is causing the Mandela effect is probably has intelligence behind it, right?
Yeah. I've even been trolled. I was completely trolled to such a point that I laughed at myself and the one trolling me on the other side of reality. Whoever was trolling me with the fennel was picking on me. And I had, at that time, up until that point, I was very like serious, like the world's coming to an end. Get your life clean right now and get ready to go. I was like like super serious. I couldn't laugh at anything. Dan, Scared Performance, actually got me to laugh. He got me to start joking around. Like reality, the manned animals are just so silly. You can't help but laugh when you see some of these things. Some of the
Oh
Bible
my
verses are
God,
so.
dude. My God, the animals, and I just, I don't really talk about them so much, but I know they now exist. I just don't want to make
Yeah.
a mistake with some of those, but some of these things we see pop into this reality are completely ridiculous looking.
I found humor in it. When the fennel was presented to me, it was a shared experience with coworkers. Somebody was going around our place of work stealing the tops of the lamps that screw the lampshade on.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was called, so I said to my boss, "Hey, I got to order a bunch of these because somebody's just going around stealing them all." I don't know what to look it up. I'm going to HomeDepot.com. I'm trying to look it up. I don't even know what to call this thing, or HD Supply. And he's like, "What do you mean you don't know?" And he just thought it was funny. His type of humor was to, like, if he knows something you don't, he'd just like pick on you. So he was just in a joking sort of way. What do you mean you don't know what it is? You've never heard of a fennel? That's what he called it. And then we called in my assistant and another person. He said, "Hey guys, come over here. You know what that thing is that you put on top of a lamp, right?" And they were like, "I don't know. It's a fennel. How do you guys not know this?" So he was like going on about how smart he is about everything. We always pick on him about always having to be right. But
it's hilarious because I had no idea what you were talking about either, and I was trying to pick up what fennel was by the context of what you were saying. So
yeah. So that day, it was the joke of the day. I mean, all day long, he was like, "Did we learn something today? Did we learn what the top of a lamp thing is called? A fennel, right?" Yep, it's called a fennel. I wrote it on my list that I'm going to order it, tomorrow. Actually, it was Monday. I was going to go home for the weekend. I was going to order it Monday. So, had it on my list to order it, wrote it down, all ready to order the dang thing, and I type it in, and I can't find it. I can't find anything even close to it. Eventually, I find the thing, and now it's spelled finial. It's not even close to fennel. It's finial.
Oh, wow.
It's not pronounced anyway the way we all said it was. It's finial. And it was fennel because my boss pulled it up on his computer. I'm standing at his desk. I'm looking at the thing. It was called fennel. But now it's called finial all of a sudden. But the reality changed. I went around and recorded it, and I asked him and somebody else that I worked with, "What's that thing called?" Everybody said it's a fennel. We all know because we made such a big deal about it that day. It's like that was the topic of the day. It's like something went into my boss just to emphasize that word was properly pronounced and spelled fennel, F-E-N-E-L. And then that was it. It was a fennel, or F-E-N-N-E-L. It's been 7 or 8 years since then, but so that was the deal. It's now finial. And I did this video and I uploaded saying now it's no longer changed, and I was going into the symbolic references of what a finial stands for and what it could mean and the spiritual implications and all that. I was getting all serious about it. And then somebody said, "Hey guy, you know what the Urban Dictionary definition for fennel is?" And kid you not, the fennel Urban Dictionary definition, which popped up into reality, is to be a piece of shit, particularly at work. That's literally the definition. I rolled over laughing. I was like, man, that's like the perfect. I mean, they got me so good with that one because I made such a big deal about reality changing, and that's what it turned out being.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So, as far as this reality, I've been asking what it's about and why we're here ever since the very beginning. But at least at the fennel point, I started to lighten up and laugh a little bit about it. I mean, the world is crazy. The world's got lots of things to cry about, but there's also a lot of, I guess some of the best humor comes from our trauma, but there is a lot of things to joke about. Recently, I've been on the simulation kick, and somebody posed a question that what if we are all in a game right now?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that game is to go through the amniotic fluid, which brings the amnesia. So we just don't remember who and what we are, but we're playing a game. If you knew without a doubt, no doubt in your mind, that we're living in a game, what would you do differently than you do now? Would you do? Would you do everything that you're doing now if you knew this was a game? And when you talk about things popping up in reality, kind of like Easter eggs, when I'm playing video games, sometimes the programmer puts Easter eggs in there. A lot of this stuff to me feels like Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Even Easter being in the Bible feels like an Easter egg. It's like an achievement or a discovery.
Yeah. It sure feels like that. It certainly feels like the changes and the message that we're trying to maybe need to put together or some sort of puzzle like Easter eggs. Exactly.
Yeah. I do find it interesting how much fighting occurs in this, because it is a conversation about worldviews and spirituality and existence of God and existence of us, and are we spirit beings? I certainly feel like a spirit being. I feel like I'm eternal. I don't feel like like this place has proven itself to be so wishy-washy that I'm somehow larger in essence than this thing that's around me.
Oh, I agree, and I think that that's one of the main things that the Mandela effect is trying to show us.
Yeah, that we're much more than this place.
We're much more than this fake place. Like, I think we're on a real Earth created by a creator. I don't necessarily believe we're in a simulation, but it's not off the table. But whatever this place is, it's certainly been corrupted with all sorts of deception. And I think the Mandela effect points out a lot of that, and it shows us to not be so much of the material world, right?
Yes, definitely. There's so much deception in this place too. I remember I used to drink the Kool-Aid with everybody else and believe everything that was on the TV and the news, and it was back in 2007 when I just started. All of a sudden, the recession was coming on, and work just fell apart. I couldn't. The place that I was at closed down, and then I couldn't land anything of substance. I would be like at a place for about 3 months, and I was like, I can't do this. And I went through like 3 other places, just burned through them, and then finally, I said, I give up. I'm just gonna go back to school. I'm gonna pull my retirement out, and I'm gonna pay for this trade school, and I'm gonna learn how to fix air conditioning. So I did that for a year. But during that year, for the gaps that I was like unemployed and looking for something, and even when I was in school, I had some free time. I started getting into all the stuff, all the things we're not supposed to talk about on YouTube. I started going down those paths, and I realized how the money system works and how controlled everything is. Very, very controlled. And that was depressing, because when I was trying to tell people around me the reality of our world and the control grid that we live in, I lost friends just trying to point that stuff out. And
who was the first person you told?
There was a friend from high school, and he stopped talking to me after that. Kid that I grew up with, and I told people, wherever I was, I told them, and I pretty much got the same treatment that I got from telling people about the Mandela effect many years later.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I went down the path for a while, and then I just eventually gave up trying to, convince anybody of anything, just kind of watching. And, if you go back to the game analogy, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the world is a simulation or a game, but it's a very fitting analogy so many times. I like to use it. And if there is a game, there might be some people out there that just aren't real. Some of these people that are super famous may not be as real as, other people. They might be implanted into the program. These people whose names change might be planted in this. We don't know. There's so many possibilities. But the idea of there being a certain number of people out there that aren't 100%, like my boss, that boss I had, no matter how much evidence I tried to present him, he was one of those guys when I did the questionnaire with. He had no memories. He had no memories of anything. I could not get him to come up with any memories.
Was he just playing that game the deniers play, though? Like, oh, you guys are just misremembering everything. So then you actually ask them anything, and they're the ones that have shit memory because they don't want to answer, because they don't want to get caught up in a change and have you tell them that they're affected.
He could have been, but this guy experienced reality change right in front of me. And he refused to talk about it, because we used to get surveys on building performance. And we used to send out surveys, lots of surveys. And we've read those surveys as soon as they came in. Every day we'd read them because we had an obligation to send out emails and reply to people and respond to them. So I saw this survey come in where the person was saying everything was great, but somebody dumped a bucket of ice in the toilet, and they didn't like that there was a bucket of ice in their toilet. So this was a hotel. So if you'd ever get a survey from a hotel, that's Medallia is the survey that usually gets sent. So the comment was, everything is great, but I didn't like that somebody dumped out our ice in the toilet. So I was, the next morning, I read it in the evening. The next morning, I was reviewing them again and going to reply. And when I was reviewing it, to reply to it, it had changed. It had changed to a bucket of trash. So I knew that it changed. I knew that it was a bucket of ice the night before, and this somehow magically changed from ice to trash. I didn't know that my boss had read the same survey the night before. Mm-hmm. So he came into where I was standing. I was standing at the desk of our admin assistant, and she was on her computer, and he was asking her to pull up the Medallia from yesterday or from last night. And she did, and he said, "Is there one connected to this room?" And he said, "Read to me the comment." And she read the comment. Basically was, we're just a little upset that somebody dumped our trash in the toilet. And he said, "Read that again." And she said, "We're upset that somebody dumped the trash out into our toilet." He said, "The trash." And she said, "Yeah." And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I knew exactly what he was thinking. And I pointed at him, and I said, "Kevin, you're not going crazy. Dude, last night that said ice. I read it too. It said ice, and now it says trash." And he looked at me, eyes wide. He just shook his head, and he walked away. That was all he could do.
Do you think that these people are just, are they spiritually blocked from seeing this somehow? Like what? But that's actually not deep enough of a question, because somebody asked this to me too, and I brought up, well, it's not, because they do see it. Like, he sees it, but he can't accept it, right? Like, he can't make that next connection. Guy, I lost your audio.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I bumped him. I'm walking and I'm talking and I'm waving my arms around this phone. I bumped it. So I muted myself. No, this guy, I had been telling about the Phil, all the Mandela effects that I was experiencing, the Phil Collins, all of everything. I was telling him what was happening to me. So he was aware that this was happening. So he got a little bit of bleed through with the bucket of ice and with the fennel. But as far as, personality wise, he was like, climbed the corporate ladder, American dream, live for materialistic wealth. I mean, that his measure of success in life was to, drive a nice car, look sharp, be professional, have a big title. That's what he lived
so
for.
This is that doesn't go well with Mandela effect. It's the materialism versus the Mandela effect,
Doesn't. No, almost all the Mandela effect people I know are not very materialistic at all. I mean, there might be some. I've seen some do YouTube channels where you thought, well, give me a break, but most are not, and most the Mandela effect people see the world as it really is, the control. Now, I also think that there's people that, they were already trying to make a go at being a professional personality or YouTuber or spiritual guru. And there's some people I feel that jump in on the game. They don't really understand it, but they're trying their best to act like they do. I thought Teal Swan was hilarious when she did her Mandela effect explanation. I was like, "Oh, honey, don't even. You've got a lot of content out there, but don't even touch this thing if you don't understand it. If it hasn't happened to you, don't even talk about it." She was so off the mark with her talk. But I hear other people that feel like they're looked to as experts in everything, and that people expect them to know about it. Even pastors avoid the topic. Pastors and spiritual gurus, a lot of times they don't want to talk about it, but a lot of them give it a shot, and some of them do quite well, but of course they've researched it. But there's a difference between researching the Mandela effect and really living through flip-flops and seeing things change and knowing without a shadow of a doubt, not even a hint of a doubt that this is going on. There's a difference there, but it's hard. I know I've heard pastors have been told at conventions to not talk about the Bible changes. I can tell when I've talked to pastors about it that they don't want to talk about it. They feel it's threatening their authority. It's threatening their authority given to them through the Bible. So it's threatening that. And
they've all become well, that's just gatekeeping. They've all become gatekeepers of the true awakening here. It's pathetic.
I saw the gatekeeping come through hard in 2021. I never thought that I would see gatekeeping come through that strong. But
let's talk about it. I really want to talk about this. So what did you see as far as the gatekeeping of the Bible changes and all of this? This is important.
Well, stuff. They didn't gatekeep the Bible changes, but they were gatekeeping other things that were going around with Bill Gates and things like that we can't get into.
Talking about
they were supporting that.
Yeah.
So I saw that. I never thought that they would go along with something like that as strong.
You mean how the church rolled over for the whole thing? And one of my favorite ones to point out is Matthew 18:20 and how it went from 2 or more are gathered to 2 or 3, and talking about limited gatherings. And then there you go. Lo and behold, the church is the first people to start limiting gatherings. So this is profound stuff that we're seeing here.
I had a friend, very good Christian, great guy. I was telling him this about the 2 or more, where 2 or more gather in my name, I will be with them. That's no longer in the Bible. I said, not in any version. All the versions, it's gone. He said, it can't be. I said, yeah. He said, I heard that. I said, yeah, I hear it quoted all the time. There's somebody at my church. There's a recorded video of him trying to encourage us to join small groups. Yep. And every Sunday, I see that guy get up there on that video, his big face, and he's saying, the Bible tells us where 2 or more gather in my name, and there I will be in the midst of them. He says that every single Sunday, and yet it doesn't say that in any verse. So I'm telling my friend that. He's like, that can't be. And so he goes to his Bible. And he goes to his computer, whichever one. And he said, no, here it is. It's right here. I said, well, read it to me. He said, where 2 or 3 gather in my name. I said, we're 2 or 3? Are you kidding me? It's 2 or more. So he thought it was okay. He thought like the whole verse was missing, and the or 3 or more didn't really matter to him. And I was like, how does that not matter to you? Don't you see? Even though it's just those 2 words, those are 2 very important words. But he was fine with it. It didn't bother him so much. I don't get it.
I don't get it either, man. You would think that these are the people that would want to be... I mean, come on. We're talking about people that are very tied to a book of supernatural stories, and then when the supernatural happens, even in their own book, they just completely shut it down.
A lot of these people, I know because I grew up with them in a very fundamental circle, believe that every word is precious and to be memorized. You do not change a jot or a tittle, which means you don't change the smallest mark. Everything is to be preserved exactly. That's the mindset. So for it to change from or 3 to or more, that should be a huge issue for any of them. But he was okay with it. I remember trying to talk to pastors about it. I got nowhere. So I pretty much...
Yeah, you've definitely made a few enemies out there that don't like you as well.
Oh yeah. Then there was a few haters, which made it interesting. The ones who just think that you're here to serve the devil or do the devil's work or something like that. It makes it colorful, but I don't know. I at first I thought I was called to like some sort of ministry, some sort of mission to tell the world. And I don't know if that's the purpose for me or not. I don't know if that's the reason. I mean, I don't mind documenting what happened to me. I feel it's important when something really profound happens to you to get it out there and to just put it down somewhere to document it. And that's kind of why I started the channel. But I admit there's a lot I don't know. I'm not like, there's a lot of people out there that seem to know everything. And I've listened to all the theories. I've listened to so many people talk about their ideas of reality, but a lot of it is just speculative until I know for sure. The one thing that I do know for sure that I anchor to is that this reality is fluid. It doesn't stick solid. It can change. It can flip flop. Anything can happen. I see it constantly too. And then, of course, you come across on a daily basis things that are different than what you remember it, and now you're wondering, did the world change, or was it just am I remembering it wrong? You know, you come across that, and I have family members who actually get mad at me just as soon as I even speculate that I remember that wrong. The world didn't change, you know. That's what they stop with that.
Oh, it's interesting too, because even in that situation, and let's just say you were wrong and it was something that you did remember wrong or whatever, they would want to jump all over you on that, and they would use that to try and dismiss the whole thing. But meanwhile, you already ran 100 by them that they're all affected by. But somehow when they disagree with one or one's wrong or something, they want to throw the whole phenomenon away. It's really strange, dude, because some of these are such slam dunk home runs, like Haas Avocados, the Mr. Rogers theme, the position of frickin' South America. I mean, everybody knows where South America used to be, you know? I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah. Well, I know. I think with my family, they're concerned that I get a little too OCD about it. I get too obsessive compulsive. I get too, like, they just don't want, like, when this first happened, I couldn't say 2 sentences to anybody without bringing it up. So now I don't. I can go all day long and not mention it to anybody. But at first, and they don't want me to be totally just that. They don't want me to go back into that mind where I just couldn't talk about anything else with anybody. I was extreme. But I still laugh when I see something that, like, we were watching It's a Wonderful Life, and that kid in there, Alfalfa, used to be Little Rascals, and he had that, you know, pointy hair sticking up. So he's a teenager in It's a Wonderful Life. And somehow it came up how he died. I was like, that, my whole, I mean, for as long as forever, I've thought that he died by, like, he killed himself. That's what I thought he had done. That's not what happened. Apparently now he was murdered. And I'm like, question, did that change, or is it my memory? I don't, not 100% sure, but for the longest time, I was certain that it wasn't that he was murdered, but apparently he was murdered. So things like that. When I come across things now, if I'm not 100% certain that it changed, I tend to not bring it up in my channel. But there's other things where I'm 100% certain something has just changed around me, and then I mention it just to document it.
What do you think about the ridiculous statement people make? You know, the people that do zero research into this at all, but the ridiculous statement that they make, like, oh, well, the Mandela effect's not real, because if the Mandela effect was real, they wouldn't be talking about it in the media and these other places. And I'm like, well, they're completely misrepresenting. I mean, I get pinged with all these articles that gets, you know, once they hit Google and it grabs the algorithm, and I have the Mandela effect alert on thing. So I look through, I don't read them all, but I if it's a long article and it looks like they're really coming at us or our memory, I'll read it. Sometimes I'll cover it on the air. This shit is endless. But let's just take any Mandela effect article, like, that comes out, say, like a top 40 list on a Yahoo site or something, right? Usually what they'll do is they will put 40 of the 40 Mandela effects for the most time. I don't really have a problem with. They're usually real Mandela effects. I'm not going to vouch for these people, but usually. But what they do is they never get past the products and the brands, which we know are very real and very important and wake people up and everything. But when you don't get past the products and brands, you leave it in the mind of the skeptical people that, oh, these companies just changed this. And they literally don't even explain the concept and the existence of residue. Like, that should be such a... I mean, anybody that watches my channel, I don't probably have too many deniers that still watch, but there's definitely some because I cover other topics as well. You should find that as a big red flag. Like, even if you don't agree with the Mandela effect being real, you know that we talk about residue and we have hundreds of years of residual evidence that match our memories. It's not just a memory game. That should be a red flag for you, that no, the media is not covering this to help us out. The media is covering this to misdirect people away from what's really happening. They have to cover it, but this is called gatekeeping. Do you agree with what I'm saying here? Or?
I feel like it's gatekeeping at the highest level, even higher than a human level. It's, and I've mentioned this on my channel many times, reality itself is blocking me or changing things, right? I mean, not long ago, I was just thinking about uploading a video that I was thinking at that moment, it's going to be hard for the deniers to deny this one because this is pretty solid.
Dude, listen, I've had that same thought so many times. Continue.
As I'm thinking that, the dang thing changed. I mean, as I'm thinking it, as I was hitting the upload button, the dang changed right in front of my eyes. And that was a video not too long ago that I did. But it's almost as if something out there consciously, it's like it definitely reads my thoughts, and like some alarm goes off somewhere saying, "Oh, we got somebody who's gonna offer one up. We don't want it out there," so they shut me down. I've been shut down that way a number of times, and it does feel like there's an intelligent block, and that people, I call them keepers or defenders of reality. They're just so urgently defending this reality, why it can't change. And it's like you're working for this thing out there, this unnamed thing that's keeping reality stable or trying to. It's working its darndest to hold everything together and keep us believing the lie. That's what it's doing. But there's definitely an opposition. There's something that tries to block me whenever especially when I have something pretty good. Oh, I remember it was the yin and the yang. It was that guy who was like an expert on Eastern religions, and his video was labeled Ying, Y-I-N-G, and Yang, and he was pronouncing it Yin and Yang, and I listened to it, and it was coming through the subtext like that, and this guy, and I was thinking, well, this guy, like, his whole channel's about these Eastern religions. He's not going to get this wrong, and I was going to do a video showing that, and as I'm hitting upload, that Ying changed to Yin on me.
Wow.
But that does happen.
So we know that people take so just like Mandela affected is a term that needs definement. Some people use that as people that accept it like us, but I use it as, well, everybody's Mandela affected, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I just lost my train of thought for a second. I hate when that happens. I totally forgot what I was going to say.
Well, that's all right.
Oh, man.
As I was saying, I hate the term Mandela effect, and I feel like Fiona Broome is a horrible representative for it. I mean, I don't know what's up with that gal, but she got on George Norrie, and instead of them talking about the Mandela effect, she talked about fairies the whole time, and even the show was labeled the Mandela effect, a case of mistaken memory, and I was like, how is that the title of the episode, and how is Fiona going along with that and not saying anything? She's just like going along like it's all mistaken memory. I was shocked, but there is a lady named Starfire Tour who says the whole Mandela effect was kind of taken from her by Fiona, like shortly before then she had been talking about it.
I don't trust either one of them, by the way. I don't trust either one of those characters.
I haven't seen Starfire Tour on anything. I just saw her like on one thing, and then she's like gone blank. Now the Gregor Former, that fella, I don't know if he's alive or dead. I really wanted to make contact with him, but he's out east. Somebody out on the East Coast needs to go up there and see if they can speak to him or his family. He's probably not alive. But for that guy to write that book, The Iron, and put down one of the most certain Mandela effects out there, which would be the dilemma.
Oh, dude, that's a huge one. And in the book, he's got this whole scene where he's being chased and like gunned down and all this shit. And all of a sudden, he goes into this whole rant about how the world, he remembers when everybody used to spell dilemma, and he spells it out with the fucking N, dude.
In his book, he's given a clue. And if you read the whole book, which I've read it twice, he's saying that reality is a game. It would basically, in his book, you've got a headset, you go into a virtual reality and you play around, and he's basically saying that's what all reality is. The headset basically just helped the mind get there, but he found that he could do it without the headset, and that there are lots of realities to bounce around to, and the word dilemma was just an example of a forgotten reality. But
that book came out in like 2000. Yeah.
And he was writing it in the mid-90s.
Yep.
That's why I would love somebody to get out to his house, track him down, pound on his door until he opens it up, and insist on giving an interview, because I just love to know where this guy got all that, and how did he get his information? It blows my mind that he wrote that book that long ago.
It is crazy how that is wild, dude. That is wild. I remember what I was going to say earlier too, which was tying into what you were saying, and I said we got to define some of the things, and I talked about Mandela affected taking the update. So taking the update can mean a lot of things, and you talked about kind of like this force out there trying to get people not to see, like when you upload a good video or whatever, and I've talked about this, and of course, like the update, when people say, oh, you get them to answer the old way, then you tell them it's changed, and then they take the update. Oh, well, I must be misremembering. That's mostly cognitive dissonance, in my opinion. Of course, I think that's what that is. But there's another level to it, and I do believe, and I had an experience. I don't know if you saw the video I did with the guy at the piano bar. But I do believe that there is like a adversarial consciousness to what created us, if you want to call it whatever, evil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, that observes this reality at all times. And what created us, if you want to call it whatever, evil, Satan, whatever you want to call it, that observes this reality at all times. And when we are about to get somebody to that point where we're going to get them to see what reality really is, that thing jumps into them almost like a possession for a brief period of time, and they're completely not themselves. And I had a face-to-face interaction with a guy who literally, did you see the piano thing? I'll describe it anyways. We went to Florida to visit my friend, Tommy Tell the Truth. I went to Florida to visit him. And a few of us went out to go do karaoke, to sing some like truther songs at karaoke. But while we were waiting for karaoke to come on, across the hall was a piano bar. So we go in the piano bar. It's like, the two piano guys on the stage. And after a few minutes, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to request this guy to sing some Mandela affected songs and see what happens, right? So I write down on the piece of paper, and I take $5 and I bring it up there, and it's the Mr. Rogers theme song. And you can see he's looking at it. And then he's looking at his screen. Then he kicks it down to his buddy. They delay playing my song, and they're like, oh, well, this, and you can see when his buddy looks at the screen, he's really confused, because obviously the changed to this in the lyrics. So, dude, it was my turn definitely for them to play the song. They just kept talking about it, but not playing it. They're like, oh, we don't know if we can really play that. And I'm like, what song would not be good? I mean, this is a great song for a fucking piano bar, right? So anyways, right. Dude, he wouldn't play it. So I try another song, right? And I write down Jewel, Who Will Save Your Soul, right? So I put that up in there, right? And then eventually he won't play Mr. Rogers. Eventually he goes to play Jewel, right? And he's playing the song and he's belting it out the old way. Who will save your soul? But every time he looked down at the screen during the chorus, and of course we're observing all this. I filmed it all too, by the way. It's all on film. And when he would look down at the chorus, he would sing it the new way, Souls, right? Belting it out. And then all of a sudden when he's like in the middle of it, I don't even know if he was done the song yet, he turns, he looks at me and points, and he says, you're not going to get any salvation in this church. Dude, this is the piano guy. Dude, it's fucking crazy, dude. Yeah.
That is nuts. Yeah, that's I mean, I've seen that where something takes over somebody else and starts talking to me, and I saw that a lot at first. When I first had that God experience, I was seeing little evil things at about 50 feet away. People would say I was like paranoid schizophrenic. I don't care. I was seeing them and I could understand what they were thinking and saying, and I would see them take over people and start talking me through them, and I would see it when it would happen. So when we talk about people's eyes glazing over and they start getting the download for the new reality, that's very akin to everything I saw back then with all of the spirit stuff going on too around me. I mean, I didn't talk about the spirit stuff as much, but I did a little bit. And things have definitely quieted down on that end, but I know it's out there. It's just doesn't manifest as it did at one time.
What really frustrates me, and I mean, you've seen me talk about it enough, I'm sure, is people will, come so far on their different journeys and talk about trusting themselves and trusting their senses and experiences. And then when it comes to this, it's just like, all right, man, I'm just going to go back to believing what my perceived paradigm of reality is. It's fucking crazy to me. More than anything, guy. Like, everybody's into different things. I'm into different things than you, whatever. But any of the topics we dig into, or any conspiracies, or anything to do with history, or any of this shit, it's all about digging through different fucking deceptions. Now now it's about I don't need to dig through anything to be 100% sure that Ed McMahon worked for Publishers Clearinghouse and delivered giant checks and balloons. Like, like, I experienced that. I don't need to go through the deception, but people want to throw away their experiences and act like we're just a bunch of bumbling idiots, and it really makes me wonder how many of these people are the same as us. Are they NPCs? Are they just different in some way, biologically, like, or spiritually? It wouldn't be biologically, because doctors would pick up on it, maybe not, but you know what I mean. Are they different? Were they wired differently when they were put here? Are they put here just to be a test and an obstacle for us, dude? Because some people sure seem like they're here just to be obstacles in our quest to get people to open their eyes to this.
Yeah. And that's another thing that makes me wonder too, when I think about how much resistance I've received from this other side, this spiritual force or whatever it is that doesn't want people to see it. And when you talk about interference, I've had like major interference. As soon as I was trying to tell somebody back in the old days, I remember the resistance was heavy at first, and every time I tried to do something, I'd have like electronic glitches, computer glitches. There was something trying to trip me up every way possible. I just felt like there was this gang of hostile enemies that were invisible, that just hated me for trying to bring this out into the open. And one of the things about the Mandela effect that, like, my whole life, I could say, yes, I believe in, an afterlife, and I believe in the spirit world, or I believe in something else besides physical reality. I believe in places created. I believe that, there's more to it than what we see. Now, it's one thing to say I have this belief, but when you experience the Mandela effect the way we have, it goes beyond belief. You just now know. There's no question. It's such of a certainty that this world isn't quite real, that there's something much bigger going on here, that certainty is a whole nother level. And maybe if everybody understood that reality, that what we're in is in some sort of illusion, and there's something out there that wants to keep us in the illusion. And I guess that leads to conversation about this being a trap. I know there's some belief in this being a trap. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely something that wants to keep people believing in the illusion, putting their faith in the illusion. I call reality a lot of times similar to a narcissistic girlfriend. Reality doesn't want you to be focused on anything else but her. Reality doesn't want you to think about anything else but her. Reality wants you to play her games. Reality wants you to be caught up in all the things you're supposed to be. Like when you go out to a conversation with your friends, you're supposed to talk about your kids and their success, their college, your last vacation, what's on TV, what movies you've seen, what dining places you've gone to. That's okay. That's being involved with reality. Reality doesn't want you getting off topic and talking about how reality isn't truly real and what we are in this place. It doesn't like that conversation.
No, absolutely not.
I found myself very bored going out to dinner engagements and things like that for a long time because I had no interest in putting on a fake smile and talking about the things of this world and reality, because it just seemed so pointless. And the same thing with wars and earthquakes and famines and whatever Elon Musk is up to, all of that stuff. And it's all the same. It's all being fascinated with reality, because reality is a narcissistic girlfriend.
It wants to draw all your energy.
Totally. It needs you to be 100% focused on it and believing in the lie.
That's why with most things, I mean, if you're caught up in arguing two sides of a coin on anything, whether it's left, right, or it's white and black, or it's, China, USA, whatever it is, they got you right where they want you. You're totally invested in these things that don't even matter at all.
Yeah. I think that who knows if there is a loose energy harvested, but there is a lot of energy stirred up in people's arguments. And this planet, everything about this place seems to be compare, contrast, dualistic. It's opposites all over the place, yin and yang, or yin.
Did you go through, I know a lot of people early in the Mandela effect that were coming out, and of course a lot of it would have to do with you don't realize so many people are experiencing this, blah, 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 blah. Were you in quite a bit of fear in the beginning and now you're not, or was your mentality in the beginning?
I knew people that were much more afraid than I was, but I wasn't as afraid as I was very serious about, this is we're like, I didn't know how much longer we were going to be here. I saw a battle between good and evil. I saw that, and I was very serious about trying to be on the right side of this fight. That was it. But I started to lighten up and started to joke around a lot more when the fennel experience happened, and then I started doing the Mandela Mondays and the manned animals, and we just joked about how reality was. So,
and there was a lot of fun to be had. I mean, I'm having a great time. I love the Mandela effect. I think it's great.
It's humorous.
And we have some of the best jokes, man.
And you also have a group of people who are such a small percentage of the population. It's kind of neat to be connected with such a small group, even though they sometimes fight about their worldviews and differences about what they believe. It's still unique to find people that have experienced it.
Sinbad know the Mandela effect's real and he made the movie, or is he legitimately that triggered when people interview him?
I don't know. I'd love to know. I'd love to know who put out that April Fool's joke for that movie.
College Humor is allegedly who we did it with.
Yeah, they did that. Okay. Yeah, I remember when that came out that day. I knew that was a joke, but I don't know. I always looked for like coded messages too, and that might have been trolling me, of course. But sin is bad. I could find a double meaning for almost all the Mandela effects that have some sort of spiritual or good versus evil reference.
Let's talk about some of those. Which ones strike you as having the strongest message, and let's run down some of them.
Man, it's about everyone. I just talked about it recently. Snow White, and the Bible. A very famous verse is that, God will take your sins and make them white as snow. You take all the sin away. He makes it white as snow. And that's what the Christian experience is. So Snow White is, a version of that is a reference to being pure and being holy again. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Is Lucifer. You've got judgments coming. The word judgment has changed. I mean, it's just, there's so many. Even Berenstein Bears, there's a whole line of things I had connected with that, and the root of the word, and the IE has got meaning. I just did one on that.
What about the when you say the IE, you mean the general wise change into IE thing that we see?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to hear your take on it. Let's get into it.
And there was some unique stuff. I remember there was a bunch of stuff on the IE, and I'm not.
Johnny Walker is a good one.
Yeah, that one is another one that's changed. There is something with the IE, and there's a few different things like IE and the EA, but. Oh, my memory.
Well, the double L's too. Look at all the people's names who have double L's now. Sybil Shepherd, Mark Hamill, Ed O'Neill. There's a lot of that going on. People losing the L's like Joel Osteen, obviously.
L is interesting. L is a dream I had over 20 years ago that I'll never forget. And it was about the coming of L. And it was like a big event, like an apocalyptic event, or it was a daunting event. The coming of L, E-L. I didn't have really a knowledge of what that was back then. I just remember I woke up, sat straight up. It was 2 a.m. exactly. My heart was pounding through my chest, and I was like, what is this dream about? I've never forgotten that. But I was going to do a video about Elon Musk soon, too. But there's a lot of stuff coming. But that might be part of the play and part of the stuff that the storyline that we're in. I don't know. But there's a lot of Mandela effects. I thought a lot of it had to do with the separation of the wheat and the tares, and of course, a lot of the wheat is now corn in the Bible instead of wheat.
Yeah.
And the W also is a separation now between the V and the W. The W is the wheat, and the V is what a tare looks like instead of, if you look at the way it's grown, it looks like a V. Cornflakes, and cornflakes for me is a major one because that changed from the K to a C. And the boxes changed. I mean, everything changed. It was all C. It was all K at the time, and people were saying it's supposed to be spelled corn, CORN, and then it changed to being CORN.
Well, and that's interesting again because what's the message? Because like you said, with the corn, and now corn, I don't know, it's over like 125 times in the Bible now. So it's like, and we know that the Matthew 18:20 changed before the lockdowns and all that. So it's like, do you think that we're trying to be communicated through the Bible of world events that are about to happen, or like, why do you think that the scriptures are changing?
I think symbolically, all the wheat and all that means the harvest, and that's biblically. Mark chapter 4 is one of the biggest changes that happened right before my eyes, and that happened. That was reality glitching right in front of me. So Mark chapter 4, it was 2016, and I was going to a Christmas event, and we went to this dinner. We were driving back. I could see the traffic was all stopped. The red lights were all ahead of us. My wife seemed to be oblivious to the stopping of the traffic, and I thought she was going to barrel right into him. And I said, "Stop! You've got to get off. You got to get off the next exit. We're going to get in a wreck." And the exit was Mark 4. So we cheated death one more time and barely made it across the fast lanes to get off the road. And back then, I used to see everything that happened to me as some sort of a double message, or maybe God's trying to say something. So that morning, I was wondering why we went through those crazy events and why she couldn't see the traffic and why she wouldn't listen. So I just opened up the Bible to Mark chapter 4, and it was starting out. It was talking about the separation of the wheat and the tares, the biblical parable of the wheat and the tares and the harvest time. And I put the Bible down because I had to go to work. I went to work. As soon as I got to work, I continued. I pulled the verse up on the computer, and as I'm looking at it, the paragraph, this is right in the beginning of Mark chapter 4, the screen flickered, and the wording changed color. So instead of it being all red, because Jesus was talking, it was in red, it changed to black, and it was gone. The parable was gone. It was no longer talking about
What's the exact?
separation.
What was the exact change again for everybody listening?
Well, in Mark chapter 4, in the beginning of Mark chapter 4, Jesus was talking about the parable of the wheat, the separation of the wheat and the tares.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's in Matthew 13, and only in Matthew 13, but it was in Mark chapter 4 at that time. And
okay.
In Mark chapter 4 is also the passage where he talks about the sower and the sowing of the seeds, but there was the separation of the wheat and the tares. And I saw it change right before my eyes. I saw the color change and everything. And I stood up from my desk and it's like, what is this place? What did I just witness? I was completely blown away when I saw that. But yeah, so in the Gospels, you'll have the same story told at different parts in different books. So in Matthew 13, it's there, but it was at that time both in Matthew 13 and in Mark chapter 4. It's gone now. And if you read Mark chapter 4, it's a perfect place for that parable to be with all the other things that are in there. So but it's just gone. So that happened. And a lot of times I would feel like a lot of the changes that I was being allowed to see, like my body, my avatar was being steered in that direction to be there at that particular time to take notice. Like I was being guided to see these things at the time I was seeing them.
Oh,
there was
for
definitely
sure.
lots and there was an opposition at work, and there's a whole a whole cluster of unseen players that I don't know what was all going on, but knowing that this reality is not real, I'd have to say message received, but I just don't know what else I'm supposed to do with that. What should I be doing right now, knowing that it's an illusion? What should I do with that? I don't know. That's still the question. What should I do differently? Would I do anything differently, or am I doing exactly the thing I should be doing? I don't know.
When you first saw that the lion changed to the wolf, did that automatically, shoot you back to that first experience you had, the imagery of the wolf and all of that? What did you think when it first happened?
So the very first one with the Phil Collins song was the one where I couldn't stop trembling and the blood just drained from me, and that was the hardest effect. And then after that, things would change in front of me, and I would get excited, like just like a kid. I'd get excited that I was seeing it, but I wouldn't be in shock like I was the first time. And now I've gotten to the point where I can see something change, and I just kind of giggle a little. That's it. Just laugh. It doesn't faze me anymore. So stuff can change around me, and it's not just Mandela effect items. It's just objects themselves. I mean, I can like one time I was watering the grass, and I had two hose heads because I didn't know which one I wanted to use. I had a brass nozzle, pointy nozzle, and I had a squeeze type gun, and I was watering some new sod, and the grass was low cut, no weeds, it's like golf course like, and I was just watering the sod. And I took the brass one, and I just dropped it at my feet. And the grass couldn't have been, it was just an inch or two. I just dropped it at my feet, and this was shiny brass. It was very clear, right? I'm watering, I look down, and it's gone. Nobody's around me. There's no one around. And it just disappeared. It's like I dropped it. It was there for a second. It was very clear, right? I'm watering, I look down, and it's gone. Nobody's around me. There's no one around. And it just disappeared. It's like I dropped it. It was there for a second. And I looked down again. It's completely vanished. It's gone. And stuff like that will disappear.
Yep.
And there's a lady who's researching this stuff back in the 50s, and she wrote a book in the 70s or 80s or 60s, something like that. But it's called JOTT, J-O-T-T. And the book stands for just one of those things. And yeah, she goes way back. She was saying this kind of stuff does happen, and she was documenting it as a scientist, and she was also documenting ghost activity. So her big thing was things that come up missing just for no reason. They come up missing, and then they return, and then the ghost thing. She was studying it like a scientist would. But she's pretty old school with that. But that's happened.
I'm gonna read a super chat real quick. New super chat from Emily. Appreciate what you do. I feel like time is speeding up like crazy. $20 super chat. You have any opinions on time actually maybe speeding up, and how that if you do have an opinion on that, how it would correlate with the Mandela effect in reality?
I remember Dan doing a video on that back in 2016, and he had a lot of experiences with time moving differently for him and too fast and bouncing around. And we would all do that, counting 1,000, 2, 1,000, and see how that compares to, now. It's hard to. How do you scientifically test that one though, other than it just kind of being a feeling that it is? But,
yeah.
I do feel like everything is flying by awfully quick.
A lot of people, as you know, will call the Mandela effect a psyop. I think the psyop aspect, though, is obviously, people trying to convince us that our memories are failing. And we've seen some serious gaslighting from people like companies like Skechers, Publishers Clearinghouse, Fruit of the Loom. Some people think that these companies legit don't have any recollection of them having the cornucopia, Ed McMahon working for them, or the tea and Skechers. I say they completely remember that, and they're just completely trolling us. What's your take on that? On those type of companies?
Well, it could be at a human level, and it could go even higher. I think there is some trolling, and I know there's trolling going on, because the fennel experience was a complete trolling of me. I actually had to laugh at it too. I don't know to whose entertainment all of this is, but somebody out there must be finding some humor in all this mess as well.
If you go to the TikTok of freaking Fruit of the Loom, they have like they had a whole playlist. They're up as individual videos now, but there's like 25 videos of them with like a talking cornucopia doing these stupid jokes about how I never got in the logo and I always wanted to be included and all of this shit, dude. And for me, there's no way that they don't know that it's real. I mean, they're completely just mocking us, dude. And the Publishers Clearinghouse. If you go to Publishers Clearinghouse on the YouTube channel, mostly what you would find is what you expect: videos minus Ed McMahon, videos of winners of the sweepstakes. They've got like maybe there's 100 videos. There's 2 of them that stand out like a sore thumb, and it's them trying to convince you that the fucking Mandela effect isn't real, dude. And then Skechers hires Mr. T to do this ad about he's the only T in Skechers. You thought there was a T in Skechers. Well, people thought there was a T in Skechers because there was a T in Skechers. You haven't seen the Mr. T one?
I haven't seen that one. That's funny.
I'm gonna bring it up while you comment on what you think about what do you think about this?
Well, yeah, I mean, back in 2016, I felt like reality was just poking me, just trying to poke me into frustration because, like, all the movie, and it was Christmas time, and it was like doing all these ads for movies by whoever, but they were all like major Mandela effect movies. So it's like, what a cluster of movies to put together for a commercial. They're all huge Mandela effect movies. Somebody must know something. And then I was saying, too, I think that TV show Mr. Robot came out in 2015.
Okay.
And they totally knew about the Mandela effect in that Mr. Robot because in 2 or 3 seasons, they dropped hints to it. And that was really before the big wave of us were really even talking about it. And then there was that Steins Gate cartoon that completely the Mandela effect. They knew. There's people that knew, and maybe Gregor Former is another one of those. He's just dropping the hint because he knows. I don't know how they know.
Well, dude, there was a lot of disinfo articles that were coming out in the early 2000s. I've covered a few of them well before most of us were aware that some of these things had changed, and they were trying to dismiss them as movie misquotes and shit like that. They weren't calling them Mandela effects.
But how many things have changed retroactively too? How many things are we seeing that has just been inserted in our timeline? Because I've come across things that weren't there, and suddenly they were part of our history.
Like Black Tom?
But it wasn't there before. I don't know what Black Plum is, but I've come
across... Black Tom.
Oh, Black Tom?
Yeah. You know what that is, right?
Familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But is that, like, new to the timeline? I'm just saying, like, back when I began being affected, I was looking for Mandela effects every single day, and I was tracking. I would put in the word Mandela effect, and anybody that put out a video that day, I watched it. I watched every single thing, and I did that for about a year. And then even after that, I at least glanced through the videos for a year later, just if I didn't watch. So I watched every single one, and I do study, and I was so obsessed with digging in and at least glance through the videos for a year later, just if I didn't watch. So I watched every single one, and I do study, and I was so obsessed with digging in and like looking up the company background and the histories and all that. So I would find a Mandela effect that was like mind blowing to me. I'd research it down to its core. I'd find out its total history. And then a month or two would go by, and there'd be a new history, like something added, something changed, something blended.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's happened with the Black Tom attack, because originally, first of all, the Germans never attacked American soil in my reality, but now they bombed New York. Yeah. And now not only did they allegedly 2 spies snuck in 1916 and bombed New York, and, you know, so bad that the torch of the Statue of Liberty was never open to the public, but we've spoken to people that have been to the torch. I have personally spoken to many of these, not many, but a few of these people. But so they have these backstories, right? And the backstory has evolved over the time since I started looking at it. It's exactly what you're talking about. And it originally was 100,000 pounds of TNT. Now it's up to 1 million pounds of TNT, and they're calling it the largest non-nuclear explosion in the history of the Earth.
All of a sudden, details will change, facts will change, things that are completely new will pop up. When I was hardcore researching it, and I haven't been for a while, but back then I remember I was coming across that stuff all the time, where edits were being made to our history, which again made me think, is different parallel world, or is this reality getting edits? But there was definitely that, and I always say the past can change just as easily as the now can change.
Well, look at the do you remember the Ed McMahon situation? So when the Ed McMahon Mandela effect, and people were talking about it for a couple years, and the only video that was out there with him with American Family Publishers was one video with this blue background, and that's all the deniers would ever come back with, and that's all that we had as far as new reality. But then all of a sudden in 20, and the story was he never worked Publishers Clearinghouse, but he worked for AFP for 5 years. And Dick Clark was with him for 1 year. Well, then in 2019, our reality all of a sudden had 15 years worth of commercials retroactively put into reality of him with AFP, and he was with Dick Clark for like most of it, for like at least 5 years or so. So that backstory and footage totally retroactively inserted after people on both sides of the Mandela effect conversation were scouring for evidence of Ed McMahon with or without Publishers Clearinghouse.
That stuff always blows my mind when I see that. But that's where I wonder, because, there's this part of me that wonders if I popped into a whole different world. And for me, that one of the hardest ones. So Hillary, that gal.
Oh, God. Her name kept flip-flopping like crazy.
And it was during the election
campaign,
right before the election. Yeah, during the campaign, we'd see her name constantly in front of us, and she had one L in her name. And there was blogs. I was part of the conversations where they would say she's supposed to have two L's in her name. We would say Hillary Killary, and I can still see where they matched up the hill and the kill. So they would say, this is the conversation that, just like the Flintstone people, I'm having with people about, and I would say I'm not 100% on Hillary being two L's or one L. I just never noticed, but she's definitely got one L now. So when it changed for me on election night, when that changed to two L's, I immediately went back to those people and those blogs and those comments and those conversations, and they were all gone, just disappeared. And it seemed like the amount of people that were around me who were talking about the Hillary Clinton, that number went down to almost nothing. Like nobody was out there. It was just like I'd put out a video saying, I'm just completely blown away right now because what happened to Hillary? And there'd be like a few comments, but it wasn't like what it was. Like in the other reality, it was very common to talk about her name. And then it just changed, and it got like almost no traction. It was very strange. Katy Perry, she changed on me heavy duty too, because I was in the reality where it was Kate Perry. Everybody called her Kate Perry. That was all she was known by. Nobody called her Katie. And I had this memory. I was like, isn't she supposed to be called Katie? No, she's Kate. Okay, Kate Perry. Then she changed to Katie again.
Wow.
But the whole world, just the amount of people around me, like the amount of conversations and everything drastically changes too. VIX, like there are very, very few people are with me remembering VIX, VICS. I was in that reality where it was VICS. There was no K. And we were puzzled. Isn't it supposed to have a K? I can't remember. And now it's got the K again. So, and then again, K, there's always that K. For me, the K has been a strong one.
Wow.
I don't know. It's hard to understand. It's hard to get the mind around it, but one even starts imagining or thinking about solipsism, or maybe I'm in some sort of dream that I can't escape. Maybe none of this is real. It's hard to fathom. It's so bizarre.
What do you you talked earlier about you would like survey people, and I do the same, and we don't give them the answers of multiple choices. The deniers will say things like, oh, you're leading the witness or planting things in people's heads, and people like you and I are very careful to make sure that we absolutely do not do that. You go
to experts too. Like I saw one guy take the Ford logo to garages where mechanics work on cars, or the dealerships, and these people were getting it wrong at their own company.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I keep running into that. I talked to a guy who worked for Procter and Gamble. I had him spell it. He spelled it the old way. I saw a guy making these Volkswagen handmade crafted things at Huntington Beach, and he's making
Yeah,
them the old way. But he had these little bases that they stood on that was shipped to him from a company, and on the bases it
yeah.
had it the new way. And I had it's all on video too. And I had a conversation with him, and I'm like, yeah, but you're drawing it. It's beautiful, and this is how you remember. I said, don't you find it odd though that every Volkswagen you look at, the V and the W is separated now? He's like, I saw that, and that is really strange. So,
And I just did the video not long ago about the Caldwell Banker, and all these people who work for Coldwell Banker, and they still remember. They seem to think that they work for Caldwell because they're still spelling it Caldwell.
oh, I saw that. Even a lot of them. I think you show on. Was it you that showed it on their like business profiles and LinkedIn and these other
Yeah,
sites?
yeah. It's all over. It's so many. It's just funny, and it's like the little types. I mean, the evidence that something is going on should not get the treatment it's getting. Like educational institutions, and even like there's a lot of people that could put some weight behind really studying this if they wanted to, but you don't see anybody with dollars really funding anything to just try and really get behind and try and understand it better, unless they're trying to take it over and control it. There might be that out there eventually, but I don't I don't know. It's weird that they don't give more weight to the amount of evidence that there is. Why these people all getting precisely the exact same thing wrong? It shouldn't be that way.
Because, dude, this is totally, again, this totally breaks their media-driven, fake scientific only, no supernatural paradigm that they want people in. This is totally threatens that whole thing.
Yeah, it's a very naturalistic world, and the churches don't want to touch it either because it's very threatening, and it's threatening to a lot of folks, even a lot of spiritual, just non-Christian even, but just spiritual gurus don't even want to touch it. But just like my wife's a school teacher. When this first came out, she asked all these kindergarten and all these kid teachers they have the books and they read to the kids at school. Said, how do you spell Berenstein Bears? And they like 7 of them in the group all spelled it exactly the same, Berenstein. And my wife was like, well, it's changed now. What do you mean it's changed? I've got the book in my classroom. It's from the 70s. So she went to her classroom and she got the book. She comes back with the book and she's shaking her head and all confused. It's like, it says stain. These are teachers. But that's about as far as it goes.
Isn't it interesting? You probably like me. All these like, okay, this is gonna be the one that's gonna, wake everybody up. And yeah, this will do it. Planets is in the Bible now. All these people know it wasn't in there. This is gonna wake them up, or this is the one that's gonna do it. And it's just like, no. The craziest one is who cares if reality's changing? It's like, whoa, yeah. All right. I mean, okay.
How can you say it doesn't matter? This is everything. This is the world you live in. I mean, reality itself isn't steady anymore. I mean, that's discomforting to a lot of people, but we're meant to know. Apparently, it's interesting that that Mayan calendar thing, and that could be an inserted history line too. But I remember as a kid them saying to me, I was like a teenager. They say, well, the end of the world is going to be 2012. And I was doing the calculation to see how old I would be as a person. So, I'm just, okay, this is how long I'm going to live. But, it's interesting that what we're experiencing right now is pretty mind bending, and all that stuff has been around this time. We definitely are in a time of awakening. People are becoming more aware and conscious of their surroundings, and more people are becoming aware of the Mandela effect. It's just happening more organically. I don't think that I've had any impact on it, but it does seem to be like there are more and more people. I come across more people who have heard about it now than when I first was asking. There was when I first started, like nobody had even heard of it before.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking now. I think it's going to be a big year, as far as getting people to finally start to talk about this more. Even the deniers, the people that have been denying with that are out here on like YouTube and stuff, they can't control how much it's being talked about in their chats anymore at this point, and they really look ridiculous when they just shoot it down. Or, I mean, what do you think about that? How people just call it a psyop, and many of the people that call it a psyop are the same people that have made their online presence for years be about debunking psyops, and they don't do anything to show you how this psyop is done. It's completely it's a big. I'm glad that more and more people are talking about it. I love the fact that there's Mandela effects for young people, old people. I think that's by design, by the designer, obviously, so everybody can be reached. I do cringe though at most of the TikTok type videos and stuff, and these side by side comparisons and all this, and they make it look like a game. What's your take on that type of style of video and all that?
Yeah, I've always hated the like the little kid type version or just the stupid acting, but I guess that gets views. I don't know. My millennial son, he gets it, but I'm too much of an old fart. I just it's like, just be serious, please. What can you do?
Yeah.
I remember all the videos came out about the Mandela effect, and people would get so many views. I'd get 100, they'd get 1 million, and they'd be like, stupid mouth that would be open, shocked, and all that stupid stuff.
And then you got these fake videos that keep going viral, like the stupid Berenstein portal, or the people with the supposed time traveling telephone. And what's your take when you see that? I mean, obviously that's bullshit.
As soon as I saw that, I was saying, this is such BS. Why do people not see this as fake? But I don't know. It's out there.
So you talked about, and I approach people and people on the street and pastors and preachers, people standing there with the Bible, and of course, time and time again, I get them with every single change down the list. But what do you said you used to do like a survey or whatever, like what would be the top 15 or 20 slam dunks that you would present to people because you were very confident they were going to remember it the old way? Like, what do you come with in that discussion?
Yeah, I would just take like the top list that, the top 20 list that you commonly see, of course, the Luke, I'm your father, and the big ones, the Snow White. I always loved the I Love Lucy and the Play It Again. I like the old time stuff, but I guess that's more for me. The George Burns and Say Goodnight, Gracie. Especially if I'm talking to older people. If I'm talking to younger people, I try and steer it to something that's a little fresher. But it's harder to. I don't know their generation as well and what they find is the big Mandela effects. But typically, I'd have 80%. They'd be 80% in line with the things that I was asking them. They'd be in agreement, and then they get that look in their face, and they say, "Oh wait, no, it's like this." But of course, I'd experienced that enough times that I gave up eventually. But for a while, I was going around to pastors and trying to get them to see it, and that was a no-go. And then you start getting them to tell you to not talk about that stuff, or you can't be a part of our group if you're going to believe in this, that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of that out there. So there's a lot of fine people at my church, and I enjoy, going there for the activities and the friendships, but I also know that they just aren't going to talk about this stuff. But
what do you I noticed that probably in the last several months, it seems you've been doing a lot more uploads than you were for a little while, like kind of a resurgence of content from you. What kind of motivated you to get back into it a little more?
For about a year, I was in a really bad job situation that was just killing me, like killing my spirit. My body was breaking down. It was a horrible place to be. And I didn't have it in me to do any videos. I just couldn't. So I got out of that horrible position that I was in, and now things are just so much simpler and easier and quiet and peaceful. So I also make it just as easy as possible. I don't do a lot of prep. I don't do a lot of editing. Mostly, I just I speak something into the app on my phone. I hit upload, and it's done. So if I have 10 or 15 minutes, I have something in my mind, I'll I'll share it, and usually once or twice a week I've got something. So it's easy to do, and my mind is in a more peaceful state than it was a year ago. But this reality, fake or not, can sometimes be pretty brutal too. And it was a brutal time.
Mm-hmm. What do you think some of the best residues out there are?
Oh, I think you're the one that's found some of the best ones. But I always like to go back to the Snow White Mirror Mirror on the Wall is a big one. And
you see the video I just did on it?
I don't think I saw it.
White one is great. I mean, the mirror, it's like, man, I like to say, I lock 100 people in a grocery store and ask them what the Queen said in the mirror. They're all going to say mirror. Nobody's going to say the current reality. That's when you should know there's a problem here. Like when nobody or near nobody remembers the current reality.